my boy moms feel me on this, but my son has my heart and my soul. I obviously am obsessed with Stevie Lee. She is just the greatest little girl in the world. But my whole life, I always wanted to be a boy mom.
Like, Jesus is gonna spank you, lady, if you keep it up.
Yeah, literally, he's gonna bend you over and fuck your ass.
Jesus Christ.
Don't worry, guys. I had a C-section, so everything's pristine down there.
Wow.
No. Not in public, I won't. But
These clips weren't leaked or dug up by internet detectives. They were sitting on Avery Woods' own pages the whole time, watched by millions of people who never thought twice about them because the next video was already playing. But once people started looking back, those same clips didn't feel so harmless anymore. Because here's the part of the story that almost nobody's talking about. Avery's controversies didn't come from one bad moment. They came from a pattern that's been sitting online in plain sight for years. So today we're going to do the full version, in order from the beginning, no skipping the parts that are uncomfortable to sit with. If you've spent any time on TikTok in the last 4 years, you probably already know the broad strokes of who Avery Woods is. Avery Woods was born in 1995. She grew up in Arizona. Before any of the followers and the podcast deals and the Hulu announcements, she was a nurse.
you're welcome.
Not a general ward nurse, she worked in a pediatric intensive care unit, a PICU, a PICU. If you know anything about what that environment looks like, you understand that it's not a job you do for the content opportunities.
I am a registered nurse. I've been a nurse for almost 7 years, and I actually just made a huge career transition. I worked in pediatrics. The majority of the time was pediatric ICU for almost 6 years, and I just left a couple months ago to do aesthetics full-time.
She's talked about what it was like working through the COVID-19 pandemic. She described social media as the outlet she built for herself, a place to process what she was carrying when she walked out of the hospital.
I never had any sort of plan to do social media. I just started sharing my nursing journey on Instagram about 7-8 years ago when I was in nursing school, and it just started picking up, and I just truly loved sharing about my experience and talking to other students and nurses, and then I just kind of started growing from there.
And that early content reflects exactly that. There's a rawness to it that you can't fake. She was someone who genuinely needed somewhere to put it all, and the camera became that place. Her first paid partnership was a $500 deal with Cherokee Uniforms, a Scrubs brand. That's where the money trail starts. $500. And then she noticed something that every creator who's ever grown an audience eventually notices. The numbers moved differently depending on what she posted. Strict nursing content did okay. The moment she started mixing in lifestyle, skincare, Amazon links, home stuff, just her actual life, the views went somewhere different entirely. Way up.
My insecurities really got the best of me because I thought people only followed me because I was a nurse. And it wasn't until I started posting outside of my nursing career that I really started taking off.
She made the decision that every influencer eventually makes, lean into what works, and what worked was her. By the time she stepped away from nursing full-time, Avery had built a massive audience, more than 2 million followers on TikTok and another 800,000 on Instagram. She also launched a podcast, Cheers with Avery Woods, which was eventually acquired by Alex Cooper's On Well network, a major milestone in the podcast world. Her husband, David, quit his job to work alongside her. They moved the whole family to California in 2025, reportedly to Calabasas, the kind of city whose name tells you everything about what your life looks like when you live there. That's the world Avery had built up by the time this story really starts, and it's important to understand what that world looked like because what happened next changed how people see every part of it. You cannot tell this story honestly without talking about David. And you cannot talk about David without talking about how Avery tells the story of how they met, because she has told it publicly on her own platform multiple times. She framed it as a love story. A large corner of the internet framed it as something else entirely. Here's what she said happened.
Before I gave him anything, he's like, I'll be the best boyfriend you ever had. I'm like, okay, great. We're gonna be boyfriend, girlfriend. Then we hook up, and then he's like, actually, yeah, I want nothing to do with dating at all. And I was like, okay, slay. So after he led me on for a bit, I was like, fuck you. I cut him off. I blocked his number. I blocked him on social media. He would come in the store when I was working because he would see my PT Cruiser in the parking lot. I would go to the back room and hide in like the freezer area where the pastries were and watch the security cameras until I knew he left.
Now, even after she blocked him, David began parking his patrol car outside the Starbucks during her late shifts. And this is the part that went everywhere. He went to a Verizon store, obtained a brand new phone number specifically to bypass the block she had placed on him. He called her on it to ask if they could meet for coffee, and she said yes. And she knew that day he was going to be her husband. And then this part circulated outside that core audience. Now, let's be fair about something. They are still together more than 10 years later. Their family, by external appearances, is intact and functional. People's relationships are their own, and nobody watching from the outside can know the full private dynamic. But that's not actually the issue here. The issue is that Avery turned a story about a man ignoring her boundaries after she said no, getting a new phone number to contact her, and waiting outside her workplace into content for millions of viewers. And she presented every single one of those details as proof that he was worth saying yes to. The issue is the framing. It turns repeated boundary crossing into something romantic, and the message remains online without any acknowledgement or clarification. Avery's biggest viral moment, the thing that launched her from a mid-sized creator with a nursing niche into a mainstream TikTok name, was a series of videos featuring her daughter, Stevie Lee. The idea was simple. Avery would film Stevie doing normal toddler things, then dub over the videos with an adult voice full of jokes. The contrast made the series explode online. But that kind of content also attracts the wrong audience.
One of the most concerning videos that Avery posted of her daughter was to a telephone trend a few years ago on TikTok, where her daughter is sitting in front of the camera like this with her lower half pointed to the camera. Her daughter seems to be on a counter and Avery standing behind her, and she grabs her daughter's leg and uses her foot as a telephone, and in the caption it reads, "She's not as flexible as she used to be." One of the scariest comments on that video was someone who commented pre-order.
But instead of taking action, she continued posting. And then came the boy mom video, the one that made everything else impossible to dismiss.
My boy moms feel me on this, but my son has my heart and my soul. I obviously am obsessed with Stevie Lee. She is just the greatest little girl in the world. But my whole life, I always wanted to be a boy mom. And I remember when I found out I was pregnant with him, and I was just ecstatic because I was such a tomboy growing up.
She said it on TikTok to the millions who had followed her family. For years, Stevie Lee had been a central part of Avery's content and a significant part of the platform that generated her income. Then, Avery publicly suggested that her son held a place in her heart that her daughter did not. In 2025, Avery and David moved the family to California, reportedly to a home in Calabasas that, by various accounts in the press, cost well into the millions. The move was documented, and then very suddenly the children's faces were not. Part of her audience called it growth. Finally, she was protecting them. She was listening to the people who had been asking her to be more careful for years. And then people looked at the timing of the move. And then people looked at California state law. As of January 1st, 2025, California updated and expanded its Coogan Law, landmark legislation originally designed in 1939 to protect child actors from having their earnings spent by their parents. Governor Gavin Newsom signed Assembly Bill 1880 extending those same protections to child influencers. Under California law, if a child appears in at least 30% of a creator's content, 65% of the earnings from that content must be placed in a protected trust the child can access as an adult. Avery moved to California in 2025, the same year the state's child influencer law took effect. Soon after, her children's faces largely disappeared from her content. Avery's not said the two are connected, but some longtime viewers questioned the timing and speculated it was influenced by the new legal requirements. And the fact that she packaged that calculation publicly as a child safety decision, as Avery finally doing the right thing, is the part that made it land so badly. Avery Woods can't help herself. What's the point of publicly saying you're no longer showing your kids' faces if you're going to exploit them anyway? Barely hiding their faces with drawn-on stars, having their entire bodies in videos, using them for affiliate links, and now just straight up having them in ads. She's not protecting them at all. And here's the deeper problem. The content already exists. The internet watched Stevie Lee grow up for years. A star over her face in 2025 does not erase the videos posted between 2020 and 2024, or does not address the pre-order comment. It does not change anything maternally for either child. All it does is give Avery plausible deniability while the content continues exactly as it always has. Now, Avery's podcast, Cheers with Avery Woods, has been running as a relatively standard influencer talk show. Episodes with David, episodes with friends, fellow creators coming on to chat about relationships and wellness, and the usual lifestyle content adjacent things. It worked, and landing a deal with Alex Cooper's On Well network was a major milestone that brought Avery's podcast to a much larger audience. Avery used that larger stage to invite Harry Jowsey on. If you're not familiar with Harry Jowsey, he's a reality TV personality from Netflix's Too Hot to Handle, a show where conventionally attractive people are placed in a villa together and asked not to have physical contact with each other. He has his own set of internet controversies that are worth their own video entirely. The relevant point here is simply that he is not someone you bring onto a platform built around an audience of women if your goal is to be taken seriously. Most of Avery's female audience had already raised an eyebrow at the booking before a single minute of the episode had aired. And then the episode aired.
I like to talk about sex. I like to answer questions about sex. I like to give my mommy advice to other people.
Oh my gosh.
Then she asked him what his type was and followed up with, "I hope it's basically me. Just kidding." She commented that Sabrina Carpenter made her horny, and she asked Harry hypothetically if he would hook up with her.
I'm married, but hypothetically speaking,
Yeah, I would do it.
don't tell Unwell's. Yeah, okay. Thanks for being here.
Look, was that actually it?
Yeah.
Was it actually? No. No, it wasn't. Ask the question.
I'm married, but hypothetically speaking, would you hook up with me?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Woo! We got that on film. Thanks
Wow.
for being here.
That's crazy.
She spent a significant portion of the episode making jokes that commentators described as trying to be Alex Cooper but miscalculating the execution completely. And then she got to the part about her haters, and she made the joke about Jesus.
Like, Jesus is gonna spank you, lady, if you keep it up.
Yeah, literally, he's gonna bend you over and fuck your.
The short version is this. She talked about the women who leave hateful comments under her posts while simultaneously having Bible verses in their Instagram bios, and the joke she made about what Jesus would do to those women was graphic enough, specific enough, that Harry Jowsey visibly flinched on camera. When the clip circulated, the response was immediate, and it was overwhelming, and it was not just from religious people. It came from Avery's own audience, from creators who had been following her for years and were sitting there genuinely confused about what they were watching and why it had been posted. And underneath all of that noise, a second clip from the same episode started circulating, one that had gotten somewhat lost in the initial fallout of the Jesus joke, but that landed for a different portion of her audience even harder. Avery made a comment about her anatomy, specifically about the fact that she had delivered her children via C-section. She used the word pristine.
Don't worry, guys. I had a C-section, so everything's pristine down there.
Wow.
No. Not in public. I won't. But
Her podcast audience is largely female. A very large number of those women are mothers. Many of them gave birth vaginally. Many went through difficult labors, long recoveries, lasting changes to their bodies that they were still carrying. And the relatable TikTok mom who had built her entire brand on the idea that she understood them had just told them on a live recording that her body was pristine because she had not gone through what they went through.
I also think by her saying this, it totally dismisses how hard C-sections are and what C-section moms have to go through.
I've had 2 C-sections and I am wrecked. Wait until she's in her 40s and finds out about adenomatous and a bladder issue from the surgeries. Value isn't based on what we can do for men. That last comment came from a woman who had also delivered via C-section, just to be completely clear about how far the remark landed from its intended target. After the backlash reached a volume that was impossible to ignore, Avery did what you do when you have messed up on a public platform. She posted an apology.
There are jokes that I should not make that cross lines, and I made a joke that crossed a line, and I'm so sorry. I have been very, very open about religion in general. You know, David's father was a pastor, and we've talked very openly on my podcast multiple times about our beliefs and why we believe those things.
And then she added something during the same video, almost casually.
I also just want to say, the episode that I did with Harry was scripted. These were questions that were, written by producers, and I probably should have spoken up and maybe dimmed it down a bit, and I chose not to.
She apologized for the content, and in the same video where she apologized for it, she told you the content was planned, that those questions were written in advance, that what she was now expressing regret over was not an impulsive, unguarded moment that slipped out under the lights. It was a deliberate, creative decision that she had made, prepared, and executed. What that statement communicates is very specific and very clear. It says, "I'm not sorry for doing it. I'm sorry that you reacted the way you did." It doesn't feel like accountability. It feels more like trying to move past the controversy than actually addressing what went wrong or why. And that's why this matters beyond just one podcast episode, because when you look back, the same pattern keeps showing up. After the boy mom video, she joked about Stevie again instead of addressing the criticism. After the C-section comment, she apologized for how it was received, not for saying it. The formula rarely changes. Acknowledge the backlash, explain it away, and end on a positive note and move on. For a long time, that worked, but more people are starting to notice that her apologies often focus on the reaction, not the behavior that caused it. Before all of this, there was a moment that a lot of people who had been watching Avery for years identified as the first real crack in the image. The first time the mask slipped enough that they started asking what was underneath it. Emily Kaiser was one of Avery's closest influencer friends. They regularly appeared on each other's content, and their friendship seemed just as genuine off camera as it did online. Then something devastating happened. Emily's 3-year-old son, Trig, died in a drowning accident. It was an unimaginable loss. But because Emily was a public figure, the news spread online before she had spoken about it herself, leaving the internet to process the tragedy in real time with very little information. And while the internet was still processing, while Emily had still said nothing publicly, while the whole thing was raw and unconfirmed and devastating, Avery appeared on camera in a walking vlog, a format she had never used before, wearing a necklace with Trig's name on it. Some people saw a grieving friend who could not stay quiet, someone so undone by what had happened to someone she loved that she needed to do something even if the timing was imperfect, and that interpretation is possible. It genuinely is, but a significant portion of the internet read it completely differently, and what they read was not grief, what they read was content. The criticism wasn't about the necklace alone, it was about choosing to make content around someone else's tragedy before they had spoken publicly, putting herself into a story that wasn't hers. Since then, Avery and Emily's once close friendship appears to have quietly faded, though neither has publicly addressed it. And then in April 2026 came the announcement that broke what was left of the internet's remaining patience with Avery Woods entirely. The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives is a Hulu reality series that premiered in September 2024 and became the platform's most watched unscripted season premiere of that entire year. It follows a group of Mormon TikTok influencers navigating faith, marriage, and friendships. The show works because it's built around a close-knit community with real tensions and complicated relationships. In April 2026, Hulu announced the first spin-off, The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, Orange County, with a cast that included Bobby Altoff, Aspen Ovard, and several other California-based influencers, and Avery Woods.
Be yourself, be honest. I'm not gonna lie, I forget I'm mic'd up every day, and I'm like, well, you can't say I'm not being myself because you always forget that everything's being recorded. But I think that's what makes it a real reality show, you know?
The casting surprised a lot of people. Avery has publicly said she is the opposite of Mormon, has no known ties to the faith, and doesn't appear to live in Orange County. And then came the comment. One person left a single comment on one of Avery's posts during the height of the Mormon Wives casting. The comment read, "Guys, she had to pay for the new house somehow."
Avery Woods actually posted this on her IG story, a picture of the girl, the comment, and a response. But this isn't all. The comment said, "Guys, she had to pay for the new house somehow."
It quickly turned into the usual online speculation about money, despite her being a known multimillionaire who had recently bought a home in one of Los Angeles' most expensive areas. The kind of comment that follows most public figures. Avery's response was not to scroll past it. It was not to leave a witty reply in the comments. It was to contact the student's university. She messaged the student directly. Then she reportedly reached out to the institution itself, and her explanation in her own words was this: "Gave your university a heads up because I'm sure they don't want a bully attending their school." Then she posted the exchange publicly to her Instagram story, where her millions of followers could see it.
She responds from her IG story saying, "Why are the cutest girls always the meanest? Anyways, you're beautiful," and tags her, "Hope you have a better day."
Let's be completely precise about what happened. A woman with nearly 3 million TikTok followers, a nationally syndicated podcast on a major network, and an imminent Hulu television appearance attempted to have a college student removed from her educational institution for writing one sarcastic sentence in a comment section, and then she used her platform to broadcast that student's situation to her entire following. People latched on to the sign-off peace, love, and healing, coming right after she reportedly tried to escalate a situation involving a student over a single comment. The student reportedly gained around 20 new followers from the incident because Avery put her on blast, but that's genuinely beside the point. The point is that Avery tried, and the peace, love, and healing tells you exactly how she feels about having tried. And the internet reacted pretty much as you'd expect. A change.org petition was launched asking Hulu to reconsider the casting decision. It cited her documented controversies and specifically questioned whether the casting aligned with what the original franchise had set out to represent. This woman shouldn't have anything to do with a show involving religion in the name. She clearly has no morals or respect for other people and their beliefs. Trying to ruin a girl's life by getting her kicked out of university is diabolical. She's a vile human who does not deserve any airtime. You want to lose viewers, then cast this woman. She intentionally tried to destroy a girl's education over a harmless TikTok comment. Not the kind of woman we should be watching on TV. The last thing this woman needs is a bigger platform. But the part that nobody says out loud is that Hulu and the production team almost certainly knew what they were getting into. None of this was hidden. The jokes, the past controversies, all of it was already online and easy to find, and they still cast her, which is why some people see it less as a mistake and more as a choice. In a very media-driven industry, controversy can be part of the appeal. It creates built-in conversation before the show even airs. That doesn't excuse anything, but it does explain why opportunities like this keep happening anyway, because in the attention economy, visibility often matters more than context. Here's where I want to be careful, because there is a version of this video that just dunks on Avery Woods for 45 minutes and leaves you feeling righteous, and I'm not interested in making that version. The truth's more complicated. Avery Woods built something real. The nursing content, the early family stuff, the genuine connection she made with women who were also exhausted and overwhelmed and trying to find the funny in it. That was real. People were not wrong to like her. She earned that audience. And some of what has happened to her is a story we've seen before many times in this specific industry. The attention amplifies everything. The relatability has to keep scaling. The audience that wants more of you eventually wants a version of you that does not fully exist. And you have to decide whether to be honest about that or feed the machine. A lot of influencers feed the machine. Avery is not unique in that. What does make her case particular is the specific shape of how the mask slips. The targeting of a college student, the farming of her daughter's content while blurring the faces to avoid California law, the romanticization of dynamics in her marriage that a lot of people found concerning. The Jesus joke was delivered in a context that made it feel less like edgy comedy and more like someone performing a version of themselves they thought would play well and miscalculated badly. These are not oopsie moments, these are choices made repeatedly with a large platform behind them and limited accountability in front of them. And the Hulu show is where it lands for now. What it ultimately signals is less about her specifically and more about how the industry works. The message is that none of it really stopped anything. The apologies, the backlash, the criticism, you just keep going, wait out the noise, and the opportunities still come. That is the cautionary tale here, and it cuts in both directions. Where does Avery's story go from here? Genuinely hard to say. She's survived every controversy so far with her following largely intact. The Mormon Wives gig is still on, the Onwell deal is still in place, she's still posting, she's still getting brand deals, but there is a ceiling to how many times you can pull the "I apologize for how it landed" card before the audience stops showing up to receive it. There is a point where people stop giving the benefit of the doubt because it runs out. Whether Avery is there yet or not, the rest of it's already public, searchable, and still online. The internet usually catches up eventually. It just takes time. Want more videos like this? Check out our next one, because we've been covering the biggest internet controversies out there, and there's a lot more coming.